Well, today's video is going to be maintenance. So, on my way back from Decatur, Indiana the other day, I actually sheared off a brake pad off of the driver's side front, inside. I don't feel that the caliper is locked up on it or anything. I think the pad just sheared off. Um, Made some grinding noise. We'll get in here so you can see, maybe. So, okay, right. Well, okay. This here, right in this little spot here, is the outside pad. There's plenty of pad on there. The inside, which the pad rides on, is right here. The pad is actually gone. That's metal to metal. So this here's your rotor. This here's where your pad is supposed to be, and the pad's missing. All the other brakes on this truck are good, but being that I sheared a pad on the front, and I'm not known to really half-ass anything. When I tear into something, I just go ahead and do it right. We got not one new rotor, but we also have two new rotors, a new set of brakes, and I got to go pick up the wheel bearings and dust seals here in a little bit. Just wanted to get this tore apart, so we'll finish tearing this down, and we'll go into town and get the parts. It's actually pretty good. I can actually see the bolt through the camera. That works. Holy mackerel. That dude is on there. All right, had to get more leverage. Okay. Now that everything's broke free, I got the caliper loose. Pull the caliper off. Okay, just pulled the caliper off. Caliper looks fine. We'll get it sucked back in. Here's a better look. Get my fingers out of the way. Better look at the brake pads here. So this is your clip. Holds the brake pads in. Just pull that. Then there's another one down here, which this one's broke. We'll go ahead and pull it out. There's those. They should come with the new ones. Alright. Yeah. Sheared it right off. Yeah, this is like a brand new pad. Okay, so as you can see, get these stood up here. So this is the outside pad that was on there. This is the inside one. Okay, took the whole pad off of that. Now I'll grab a new one out of here and just show you how much wear we actually had. So the brakes, if you look at these two, they should have been about a half. And when I bought the truck, you know, I pulled the front end apart and inspected the brakes, the shocks, when I done the exhaust manifold, and the brakes were all fine. Since then, we are right at about 10,000 miles on the truck since I've had it. Constantly been hooked to a trailer, whether it be my dump trailer or this flatbed. And yes, there's a load on this flatbed. We'll talk about that later. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and finish pulling this apart here, and we'll get things swapped out. All right. So when you pull these calipers off, here, you never just want to let them hang. So what happens is it'll stretch the rubber hose and it collapses the rubber hose. It has a potential of breaking the lining in it. So pretty simple. Take a zip tie or two and just get it up here by the spring or whatever, and you just you zip tie it off. Something to just hold it from stretching out, and it'll be, you know, make sure it's up out of your way. So the weight of the caliper is definitely heavy enough to stretch that apart and tear up a hose, and then you're back into replay or getting back in here to do more brake work. That'll cause your caliper to lock up and wear out a set of brakes if that lining or if that rubber hose collapses. Alright, just got the rotor off, and you see she's pretty chewed up, so that's why I bought new ones. This could probably be turned, maybe, but I'm not taking a chance. I use this for a business. I never turn them anyway. This is what it should look like, nice and smooth. Shouldn't be rigid and grooved up real bad like that. So if I was to just put brakes back on it with that drum, and it would, or with that rotor, it would just trash a new set of brakes. So this is ABS, and this wheel sensor's got a lot of metal shavings on it, and I do have a code on the dash, and it is for this side wheel sensor. So what I'm thinking is all the metal shavings was probably what was causing it. Now, I did not buy a new one. I wanted to try to clean this first and see if it works. I mean, you know, the cables are expensive. You know, for this cable, it's I think $103 or $113 just for this wheel sensor. So I'll try to I'll try it. If this, you know, just cleaning this up will work, then fine. You know, I saved myself some money. If not, you know, I'll put the scanner back on it and try to clear it. If it comes back on, then I'll order a cable. I don't have to take any of this apart to install that cable. The only thing that I might have to do is pull the wheel off, and that's simple enough. So we're not going to worry about the cable right now. We're going to try this and see if this actually works. So I'm going to finish cleaning this up. I'm going to go to town, get my new bearings, and my new dust seals. They should be in, and get back here and get this thing put together. So, all right, well, went to the parts store, and of course, you know, I went in there yesterday and ordered stuff. Today is the 4th of July. They're open. They guaranteed me all my stuff would be in, you know, my wheel bearings and stuff like that. Of course, they're not, and I've got to have this truck up and going for tomorrow. Got a couple big loads going right away, so I got to get this truck back together. As much as I hate to, I'm going to have to use the old bearings. So, to pull the old bearings, you got to use something like this. This is actual tool to knock out the bearing race and the bearing. I'm using a new bearing race that's already in the new hub, but I'm going to use the old bearing. So hopefully I can pop this out without damaging it. Basically, you get into the back side of the bearing here from the other side with this tool, and you beat on it and it pops the bearing out this side. So let's do that and go inspect the bearing, make sure it's good. Well, that come out pretty easily. So the wheel seal, which is that come out, of course, and then there's the bearing. So we'll get these bearings cleaned up. I'll do the inner and outer, clean them up, and we'll check it out. All right, just washed the bearings. This here is the outer bearing. Lucked out. It's not pitted or anything. Bearing looks good. Got her all clean. So we'll get them packed. The outer bearing, there's no pitting, nothing wrong with it. It's just for my point of reference, you know, I do travel long haul, and I do not want problems down the road. So anytime I take something apart, if there's something like a wear item, like a bearing, if I take it apart, I typically change it out. Fortunately, these bearings are good. Hopefully the other side is also. You know, these are okay to go back in. It's just my peace of mind. I'd just rather have a new bearing in it.
And I do that on the trailer also. Anytime that I do brake work on the trailer, I do it all. It gets new lug nuts, hubs, the whole 9 yards. So, and I just used solvent. This is a parts washer. This is what it is. It's just a parts washer, and I just use it to clean my shit. Okay, so to repack the bearings, this tool right here was actually my dad's. He owned a shop. He actually owned a gas station back in the early 70s, and he done work on cars, as most of the gas stations did back in the day. So this is actually a tool that I've acquired from him since he had passed, and this here is actually a bearing greaser. This is actually how you grease the bearings. This is the best way. They have modern tools out like this. So what you do is you take your bearing, set it down in there like that, take this, put it back over top, and you keep pressure down on it. You take your grease gun, put it on your grease nipple here, and pump grease down, and that comes out through here, down in here, starts filling everything out, and it presses the grease right through the bearings here. So we'll do that. We'll get these two bearings greased up, and they'll be ready to go in the new hubs. Okay, new hub, take bearing, drop it in there, make sure it's in there. Then take wheel seal, get my hand cleaned off, take the new wheel seal. Now this goes in one way, all right? You can put it in either way, but it only goes in one way. So the open side, and what I call the open side is where it's grooved inward, like a U shape, that goes toward the bearing, so that goes down. This piece here goes out. This piece right here goes out. So this actually sets in there just like that. And then that gets tapped down in there flush, and that's what holds your rear bearing in and keeps the dust out. So I'll knock that in and we'll put the hub on. Okay, the new seal's in and ready to go back on. Actually, it's just a little high over here. And that's a dead blow. I just use a dead blow. Tap it in. Don't have to have major force to put that in. That ought to just go in there kind of just snug, easy. It just needs a little help. Next thing, before we stick this in, we are going to fill the center of this with oil or with grease. Just you know, some regular moly grease, whatever. That way we know that we have plenty of grease in there. So we'll get that taken care of here. Okay, we got her greased up in there. Basically, you just take the cap off your grease, 2 fingers, dip her down in there, gives you some grease, and of course you just stick it in there and just lube up the hole as best as you can. You don't want to get it too full because the grease will just pop out of there, you know, as you put the hub on. So, as you can see, there's grease in there. What that does, when the grease heats up, if the bearings for some reason aren't lubed enough, you've got plenty of grease in there that will accommodate on lubing the bearings. And it keeps your spindle cool and your hub cool, and you know, you do not want lack of grease, but you also don't want too much grease, because what will happen is it'll build up pressure and pop that back seal out, and then you'll just have a mess going down the road. So yep, that's it. So we'll get set up and we'll put that hub on this spindle and get the brakes done on this side, and this side will be done, and then we'll move to the other side. Put the outer bearing in. There's that one. Then you should have a washer, flat washer. With a couple of flat spots on it on the inside. It looks like this. And then that lines up on there. And then your nut. I just take the socket, put it on by hand. Socket's a little warm, hot. I get her hand tight. Spin it a couple times, that'll loosen it back up. What you're doing is while you're spinning it, it's allowing that hub to go back and set the seal. And after you can't turn it no more by hand, then you take your ratchet and you start snugging it up. After you snug it up, spin it, it'll be tight, spin it, and then it'll free back up. And you go through this process a few times of where you tighten it up and spin. That is further setting that seal and that bearing and the hub on back in where it needs to be. Because what will happen is if you don't do this, you start driving down the road and you just put it on there snug and just throw this thing back together, what will happen is everything will come loose and you'll just chew up the bearing, chew up the spindle, and then you've got some major problems. Possibly lose the wheel. So tighten it up, spinner. Tighten it up again. Spin it. All right. So now that she's tight, now you back it all the way off. Just back it off until it's completely loose. Don't go any more than that. Just to make sure that it's loose. Pop your socket off, you'd stick it in here, and just make sure you can turn it by hand. Once you can turn it by hand, you bring it back up to snug. And I don't put a whole lot on it. This one's a little different setup than what I'm normally used to, but I just basically, I'll take it maybe 1/8 of a turn, and that's going to be tight enough. So now it spins nice and free. Now you've got this keeper that goes on over top of that nut. This is a safety keeper. What this does is this locks onto that nut, and then you put a safety pin through it. Cotter pin, which the cotter pin was actually out of this one when I took it apart. I have new ones, so I'll put a new cotter pin in here. grab a cotter pin. Brand new pack of cotter pins. You can pick these up, parts store or Tractor Supply, I think is where I got this bundle at. Royal King, somewhere, you know, hardware store, whatever. So it's a variety pack of different lengths, different sizes. So now, just gotta find the hole and stick a cotter pin through it. Typically, it's not this bad to find, you know, to be able to put these together. This is a dually, and with the dually front ends, you got this extra piece of hub that's on here, and it's all one piece. So with that, it's very hard to get your hand in here. Straight up and down. I was in the wrong spot. See if that works. It's hard to get your hand in here, and especially if your hands are fat like mine, and line everything up. But I got it. How about that? All right. So now I just take pistol grip, needle nose, and I'll bend the cotter pin over. That way it won't come out. The other one wasn't bent over. And it was just laying here in the cap. It's bent, but it wasn't good enough. So I've got plenty of them. So I'll just put a new one in it. After that's on, now you can put your cap back on. And it doesn't take a lot of force for this thing to get put back on. So my dead blow won't reach in there, so I'm just going to use this, my bearing punch, and I'm just going to tap it in here. There we go. It's on. It's good. That's all it took. All right. Now we'll get the brakes put on, and this thing will be ready to go on this side. We'll do the other side. All right. Oh, gotta go back to town. I took, or when I was putting the brakes on the driver's side, I noticed that these pins weren't sliding in here. So both of them were tight. I was able to get this one removed. I've been working on this one for about an hour. I've had heat on it, everything, and it won't budge. So parts store closes in about 45 minutes. They say that they have these with the and new pins. So we're going to go pick them up. Then we'll get these put back on. Okay, just got back from the parts store. So I went in there to get the new cradle. They had them. Started pricing them, and them little buggers right there are 45 bucks a piece. Okay, and then after you bought just the cradle, then you had to buy the pin kit, which was 10 bucks a piece. All right, so I'd have had $55 in just this. All right, I thought that was a little much. So started pondering around and asked about a new brake caliper and everything to see if it came with it. And it does. Brand new brake caliper. And I bought passenger and driver's side. Brand new brake caliper with the saddle, with the bolt kit, new slides, everything. It's all new. You know, it's probably reman, but it's, you know, new stuff. So, and I got new brake parts, which this actually is good because this actually comes with those little pins that hold the brakes in, whereas the other one didn't have that. So we've got new calipers, new slides, new cradles, everything. So the whole front end of this truck, as far as brakes go, will be brand new, except for the rubber brake line. So that's what it is. So we'll go ahead and get the new calipers and stuff put on here and get this side finished up finally. So for $70, you get a brand new brake caliper. You get the slide, everything. Everything's new for $70 versus $55. It was well worth the extra $25 that I was going to spend, or no, wasn't even $25. The extra $15 that I was going to spend for a new caliper for this side. So for $70, I've got all new stuff. Everything on the front of this is new. That was well worth me buying. Now, granted, there is a $55 core for each side, so there's $110 coming back to me once I return the old stuff back to the parts store. So I'm going to get this piece put on, get this all buttoned up here, and then move on to the other side. I also ended up getting a transmission cooler for this. It's an add-on, and I'd like to get it put on too, because I do have a run to do tomorrow, and that'll be a good test to see if the transmission will run cooler than it has been. Monday, let's see, like I said, this is 4th of July. Tomorrow's Friday. Monday, I've already got 2 loads lined up going to West Virginia, crossing the toll road, and I'm gonna be at max weight. Going across the toll road, I'm crossing the hills, and there's some pretty steep hills over there. So I definitely want my transmission to run cooler. So that's something. Hopefully, I'll get it on tonight. If not, I'll get it on over the weekend, and you know, I guess the main test will be when I cross the hill. So I'll get started on this. We'll get this together and do the other side. Now when I put these new calipers on and stuff, anytime I do that, I'll break the bleeder loose on the new caliper after I install the line, and I'll just leave it loose. And what that does is that actually just starts gravity feeding brake fluid down, and it gets most of the air out of the brake caliper. Matter of fact, a lot of times I just take it out and I'll just set it right here on the brake caliper or wherever, just so I don't not to lose it, and I'll allow that to bleed out, and we'll get the woman out here to step on the brakes for us so we can finish bleeding it out after I finish the other side. So you can see the air bubbles coming out of the brake caliper. That's just gravity brake fluid coming down and pushing all the air bubble out, being that I took this bleeder out of there. So I just typically pull that out and let that bleed out until there's no more bubbles, and then I just finish bleeding the brakes out, the traditional way. So that's one way to do her. All right, I got the tire off of the passenger side here. So granted, the hubs are good on this side, the brakes good on this side, all that stuff. Nothing wrong with the brakes, but anytime you deal with something with your steering axle, it's always best to do the same thing on each side. So even though this rotor's good, I'm putting a new rotor on it. Even though the caliper's good, I'm putting a new caliper on it. The slides are probably good, and I'm gonna put all new stuff, the same thing on this side as I did the other side. The only thing that's got me worried is I can hear the bearings grinding over here. So I don't like that. That's the bearings running through there. So hopefully it's just a little bit of lack of grease and there's no pits or anything like that on bearings, because I am not getting a set of bearings today. So there is a dust cap on here. I take a real long pry bar. This is I think this is a 3-footer to get in here. Just put it on the cap, and it worked on the other side. Let's see if it'll do it on this side. Should just pop right off. Put a little pressure on it. Yep, just like that. But you really can't get anything in there. You're talking, I don't know, about 4-inch gap there. About all you got. And that's pretty deep in there. Probably about, I'd say 5 inches to the cap deep. And it's really hard to get any tools in there. So, got the cap popped off. The cotter pin is bent around on this one, so that's good. The other one was actually out. So, we'll bend the cotter pin back around here, and I'm just going to replace this one same as the other one, since I've got new ones. And push that up, pull that out, like that. That'll be trash, but we'll go ahead and set it in there. Then you got this retainer. That's what holds the nut. That's the lock. And then you have the nut right here. So typically you should be able to just put the socket on there, and yeah, it just spins right off. It wasn't really tight. That was actually a little looser than what it should have been, but at least we're taking care of it now. There's the nut, and then with a little wiggle, the bearing will come out. There should be a washer. That retaining washer should be on the back side of the bearing. It's really hard to do this with one hand, by the way. But let's see if I can get her. Nope, I'm gonna have to set you down. Okay, so typically what I was getting at, when you do something on one side of the steering axle, you want to mirror it on the other side of the steering axle. Especially anything to do with brakes. If you do a brake job, don't just do half of it. So, being that I replaced the caliper on the other side, I'm going to replace the caliper on the passenger side also. That keeps the vehicle from pulling left or right whenever you hit the brake, just because, you know, this is a worn part already if you didn't change it. So if you change one side, always change the other side. The back, you know, the back sides, I still do it. Some people don't, and I guess that's okay. But on a steering axle, you don't want to hit the brake and have your vehicle pulling one side or one way or the other. You know, whether it be left or right. You want it to pull, you know, both sides evenly. That way you stay in complete control of the vehicle. So that's why I do it. That's why I change out both sides. Even though that this hub is fine, you know, that other hub is brand new, or that other rotor, whatever you want to call it, is brand new. I'm doing this side just because, you know, it's this here. To me, this vehicle's on the road. It is for the safety of everybody around me. You know, this truck constantly pulling weight down the road. I do not, you know, don't want to half-ass my work and cause an accident because of it. So that's why I go to the extreme whenever I change out any parts. You know, it's PM. It's something that a lot of people don't do. They try to cut corners on it, and I believe it's just to save money. You know, this stuff here that I'm doing is not cheap, but it's stuff that has to be done. You know, I sheared a brake pad off of the other side. I'm sure a lot of people would have just threw a set of brakes just on the one side and maybe a new caliper and went on down the road. I hear a lot of that, but you've got to do it right. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's hot out. Yeah, I get it, but you just don't want to half-ass your work. You want to make sure it's right. It's for the safety of you, the safety of other people around you out here doing the job. You know, like I said, I'm 26,000 pounds and under, and you know, for whatever reason, you know, you know, any time of the day, I could, you know, have a deer run out in front of me, or even a little child run out in front of me, and I don't want to be the cause of an accident of somebody dying because I half-assed my vehicle. So I think that should be in everybody's heads. Anytime you do work or any kind of mechanical work, you just want to do it right. Yeah, I understand you have to band-aid stuff sometimes just to get by until you get the part, and that's fine. You know, as long as it's safe, it's fine. But make sure you don't just leave the band-aid as a permanent fix. Always go back through and take care of it as soon as the part comes in. It's very important that you do that. So let's go ahead and knock this side out. We'll get this done. And also on this side is where the exhaust manifold gasket started leaking. I already knew what it was, or know what it is. One of the bolts actually come out for some reason. Not really sure why. I put stainless steel bolts into the exhaust manifold when I changed everything out. I know everything was tight, and for some reason one of them backed out and come out and it started leaking. So I tried putting another bolt in and tightening it up, hoping that would work. It didn't work. So I do want to change out the exhaust manifold gasket again while I'm in here already. So I'm going to knock this brake out over here. We'll get the woman out here to help me bleed the brakes. And after that's done, as long as it's still daylight and I have enough time, I am going to change out that exhaust manifold gasket. So until then, I'm going to knock this out, and we'll catch you as soon as I'm done here. All right, baby, go ahead and pump them up. You just tell me when. Okay, hold it. So what you do is you have someone inside, pump up the brake until they get a little pressure, and then they hold the brake down, and you break this loose until the pedal's all the way to the floor. Is it on the floor? All right, I'm tight here. Go ahead and pump her back up. And should start seeing the caliper moving. Tell me when you're ready. And you're going to do this a few times. Yeah, still getting air. All right, I'm tightening back up. Go ahead and do her again. And when you do this, you always want to start from the farthest from the master cylinder. So being that we just done the front, we are on the passenger side right now. So this is the farthest one away that we're bleeding. You always do this one first. I didn't get any air out of that one. Go ahead and pump her up again. See if the caliper moves. We'll do this one more time, and then we'll go over to the other side, and we may have to jump back over here. Okay, it's tight. Go ahead and pump it up one more time. Okay, you can let off. Well, I'm going to go over to the driver's side. Check the fluid. Fluid's still up good. Come into the passenger side, or the driver's side, and it's the same sequence. Okay, baby, go ahead and push down on the brake. You on it? All that noise is air. Okay, pump it up. Break it free again. Still getting air. Okay, go again. Still getting air. One more time, baby. I'm starting to feel the caliper move now. Whoops. Okay, do it one more time. I didn't get any air that time. Pump it up and see if you got a good pedal. Pump it up and see if you got a good pedal. Feels good? All right, we'll try that. I'll button this up and throw the tires back on it. I'm going to do the exhaust manifold another day, probably this weekend. It's starting to get late, so I've been on this. Huh? Am I gonna work this weekend? Well, if I get a minute, I'm like, I know I should be getting double time, huh? That's the boss man for me. He's an asshole. We'll get this buttoned up, and I don't know. I might be able to sneak out here tomorrow and do this. Be Friday. Cool. All right, there's one wheel. We'll do the other one. All right, it's all done. We'll get it off the jack stand and we'll take it for a ride. See how she goes. Get all my tools cleaned up and stuff, and get my hands cleaned up because got to keep the interior all nice and purty. So, yep, we'll do that. We'll take her for a ride, make sure she stops and goes, and tomorrow we'll be out on a run. Okay, well, I'm back in the truck here. I checked the fluid, topped it off, checked the oil, the oil's fine. It's still an 1/8 inch down on the stick. So, let's take this pig for a ride. Should be good. All right. Boy, that feels good. Not pulling. No screechy sound. I think we got her taken care of. Brakes feel good. All right. Well, we'll just take a ride around the block. Okay. So today, done the brake job on the F350. Here in my office now, just got out of the shower. It's late, it's probably, I don't know, going on 11:30 on July 4th. Got a run to do in the morning. That's why I was pressing to get that truck done today. Me and the woman really didn't have a lot going on today, so it was okay for me to work on it. Now, I'd already picked up a run after I had gotten back from Decatur, Indiana. So, you're probably wondering, oh, well, what truck did you use? If the white truck was messed up. Did I use the blue truck? No, I did not use the blue truck. The load was, I don't know, 20 miles away, pickup from the house. So, we got it picked up and got it here to the house. Would I have used the blue truck tomorrow? No, I would not have used the blue truck tomorrow to make the run, the 100-mile run. That's why there's a spare here. I wanted to, this is all about, using an old truck to do this work. Even with a new truck, I've already come to the conclusion, even though that I have a new truck, still have to have a spare truck. So this brake job, you're probably thinking, oh, well, you got an old truck, it's to be expected, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Undependable on an old truck. Well, the 2017 truck that I just got rid of for the 19, December, it was literally the day before New Year's, in December of 18. I had to do a brake job, the exact same thing to the 17 truck. Brake caliper locked up and sheared the pad off, and had to do calipers, cradles, rotors, everything, brakes, the whole 9 yards. The exact same thing. Now, all I did was just parts. I didn't, there's no labor in it because it's my stuff, and I did the work. So just parts for the 17 truck was at $1,000, just for the same thing that I bought for this truck today, for the Ford. The Ford, I just ran the numbers. We're at $400 for the parts that I done for the Ford, minus $24.99 for 4 bearings, and 2 inners and 2 outers. Means that they didn't have them, they weren't in, and I wanted to run the truck tomorrow. I used my old bearings. I did clean them up; they were fine. Repacked them, whatever. And like I said, typically when I tear something down like that, I'll just put all new in there because I don't want to chase a problem. That's just how I am. It's a good PM deal to do. So bearings are cheap enough. Like I said, you're talking $25 for 2 inners and 2 outers. Definitely cheap enough to go ahead and replace them. So price wise, between a new truck and an old truck, right now the maintenance for my old truck is still cheaper than my new truck. Like I said, that 17 at that time was, I think it might have been like 100 and maybe 14,000, 115,000 miles when the caliper finally locked up on it, and had to do that major brake job on the front end. So, wasn't no big deal. We got it done. And like I said, the white truck was cheaper. Parts are cheaper. As long as the truck runs good and does the work, I don't care. And it is hot, so as long as the AC works, that's 2 thumbs up. So tomorrow we're going to do another run. We're actually going to deliver that beam that is on my trailer. It's a very hot load. Somebody, I don't want to call it drop the ball on that run, but I think we'll make a video of that tomorrow, and we'll talk about that beam tomorrow on how I incurred that load. And we're also going Monday, already booked out for Monday and possibly Tuesday, on going to West Virginia with 2 loads. Got to pick one up in Grove City, Ohio, and it goes to Grove City, or it goes down to West Virginia. And then when I get into Charleston, West Virginia, I'm actually picking up load number 2, which goes just a little past the load that I'm taking out of Grove City. So we'll have 2 loads on the trailer. Pays pretty good, going from point A to point B, or actually point A to point B to C to D, real well. It's not very far. It's actually pretty close to my limits on how far I typically go out anymore. So, stay tuned. We'll make another video tomorrow on July 5th for the beam that's on the trailer, and we'll get it posted, and you'll see what just see what happens with it. And same way with Monday, we'll do another video on Monday on what I'm hauling. So until next time, guys, hopefully everybody's 4th was wonderful. I know it was hot here in Ohio, and hopefully everybody's safe and had a good time today and ate a lot of good food. So until next time, thanks. subscribe, hit the like button, all that good stuff, whatever. Leave some comments, and we'll get this posted out for you guys. And till tomorrow.